Welcome back. Today is election day, and New Yorkers are heading to the polls to vote. This voting season, New Yorkers will vote for U.S. Senate, governor, and so much more. Joining me to discuss voter turnout in the Bronx and how to get young voters involved is Eric Friedman, Assistant Executive Director for Public Affairs at the New York City Campaign Finance Board. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me on today.
Now, Eric, can you tell us a little bit about your organization and your effort to get more people voting?
For sure. So I'm with the New York City Campaign Finance Board, and we do a few things. In addition to administering the city's public matching funds program for city elections, it's a great city initiative that helps more people run for city office without having to rely on raising private funds from big money and wealthy developers and rich lobbyists and all those special interests. It allows people to run for office by relying on the support of their friends and neighbors, and that's a really great thing that we provide that the city offers for folks running for city office. We also, under through our initiative, the NYC Votes, provide voter outreach, voter engagement for every election, local, state, and federal, with a specific focus on communities that are underrepresented among those who go out and vote. And so we've got a particular focus on making sure that folks who might not have adequate representation or who lack power in the local process, providing them the information they need to go out and vote with confidence so their communities can be represented in government decision making.
Now, you talked about it a little bit, but whenever someone thinks about voting, they usually just think about voting for the president. But there's just so much more to that. Can you talk about, the importance of this election and the importance of local elections?
Oh, of course, and I think you made a great observation there. Turnout in those national elections when we elect the president is always kind of relatively high. In New York City, it runs usually above 60%. But people don't necessarily come out and vote in the same numbers in those local and state elections, and that's a real shame, right? Because it's local and state government that has, in a lot of ways, a much more direct impact on our day to day lives, right? It's local government, it's state government that controls, that can help keep our streets safe. Helps ensure that our schools are educating our kids, right? They provide us with clean open spaces. Ensure that the traffic moves smoothly, that we can move around the city, and get the places we need. Those responsibilities all fall to local and state government. And so, it's really important, and that's why we, through our NYC Votes work, really focus on helping people understand what's at stake in these local elections. Help people understand how their vote can make an impact on their everyday life. And we do that through the voter guide that we publish and we send to every household with a registered voter. We do that through the resources we provide online. That voter guide is available online at nycvotes.org. We do a lot of work on social media and all the platforms where you go for information. At NYC Votes, we'll provide a lot of information about kind of what's at stake in these local and state elections.
I want to quickly talk about, because you're talking about the elections. Can you just let everybody know what will be on the ballot and what they can expect to see when they go into that booth?
Oh, for sure. So again, it's a really big, important election year. We're electing our representatives to Congress and the United States Senate. We're electing the governor of the state, the head of state government. So we'll be voting on who our next governor will be. We'll serve a 4-year term as leader of New York State government. We are voting for our state representatives to the state legislature. So for Assembly and State Senate. So the people who pass laws at the state level will be voting for them this fall. We're going to be voting for judges, folks who at the state and county level, who make those decisions in the judicial system. Will have an opportunity to elect judges. And we'll be voting on 4 important ballot questions coming up that are on the ballot. One that is focused on providing money for environmental initiatives across the state. State government is requesting permission from the voters to spend $4.2 billion on projects that would counter the impacts of climate change. That's a question that goes before the voters, and they have the ability to help make that decision and really shape the future of state government.
Now, I
There are
really
3 questions. Yep.
mm,
Sorry, go ahead.
oh, so I just wanted to talk quickly about, Bronx residents, because I know for the Bronx, unfortunately, it's a challenge, when it comes to voting. Can you just talk about why we may be seeing that challenge and, why many people aren't taking advantage of the opportunity to make a change?
Well, I think we talked a little bit about it earlier, and when we've gone out and we've asked people, um, we've done the research and asked New Yorkers, you know, what is it? What are the challenges? What would make it easier for you to vote? And frankly, a lot of people aren't voting, or feel it's more difficult for them to vote just because they simply don't have the information they need to vote with confidence, right? Whether it's understanding, um, you know, what's at stake and how their vote can make a difference in their everyday life, or really just having the basic information about who's on the ballot and what they stand for and then what their plans are. It's really difficult to kind of get to the polling place and you see all these names listed on the ballot and you don't have much information at your fingertips as to what that vote means to you. That's why we put so much effort into working with reaching out to those candidates for office, encouraging them to provide information about their background, about their plans, about what they want to do in office. That information for state candidates is all available on our online voter guide at nycvotes.org. And so if from governor all the way down to those state legislative offices, we've got statements from the candidates and help them understand what's at stake and what's on the ballot. What we see a lot is kind of a big drop off, for some of those ballot questions. Again, those are questions that really can make a difference in the way that the government works. In addition to the state question I mentioned earlier, we've got 3 questions on the ballot that will help. They're put forward by the Racial Justice Commission, and voters will have the opportunity to vote up or down on adding a statement of values to the city charter that will help aimed at promoting justice and equity for all New Yorkers. This is a question that would create a new city office that is aimed at racial equity and require the city to develop a racial equity plan that's updated every couple of years. There's another question that would require the city to measure the true cost of living in New York City, and use that information about the costs of housing, childcare, food, clothing, transportation, and healthcare to make decisions about city policies, right? But if you're seeing those questions for the first time when you get to the polling place, or when you get your ballot in the mail,
It could be a little overwhelming, I could imagine.
Be a little overwhelming, a little daunting.
Right.
That's why we worked so hard to put that information together, put it in plain language so folks understand it. Again, if you hopefully you got this in the mail, our voter guide, it has the print voter guide has all the information that folks will need to vote with confidence on those ballot proposals.
I want to
That
bring up
guide is
another.
translated into Spanish, Chinese,
Mhm.
Korean, and Bengali, and going forward, starting next year, it'll be translated into additional 11 languages, right? So, again, I focus on the ballot questions because what we see is kind of a huge drop off. Last year when folks came out and voted for mayor, more than 1.1 million voters came out and voted in November, but 1 out of 4 of them didn't flip that ballot over and vote on those ballot questions. So those people just give up their opportunity to weigh in and then help shape the future of city government. We're really
Speaking of
focused
the
on making
future,
sure
I
people
do want to
understand this.
interject and talk about young
Please do.
people because I know that's another demographic that, sometimes it's a little bit harder to get them, excited or more involved. Can you talk about, efforts to get younger people involved in voting?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be happy to. Look, young people are getting more and more involved generally in politics as they kind of see what's happening at the national level. But it's still true that young voters are have the lowest turnout rates of any age group. Voters between 18 and 29 years old. Last year in the election for mayor, turnout was less than 18%. And for that 18 to 29-year-old age block. That's up from 4 years earlier. It was less than 11. But you know, even with that slight increase, young voters still the lowest turnout rate among all age groups. And the turnout rate here in New York City for young people is lower than the overall than the national average. So why is that the case? A lot of young voters are just getting started in their voting career. Folks when they register and vote, sometimes it takes a little while to kind of understand how to engage. We're not doing as much civic education in the public schools as we used to. We need to invest more to ensure that civic education is a part of the curriculum all over the city. But I think what happens when candidates run for office, a lot of time they're focusing on the people they know are going to come out and vote. Right. So they're not investing their resources in targeting and really focusing on that younger generation. So that's a big reason why we work really hard to make sure that information is out there and available.
Can you quickly just let
written in plain English, so that young people can understand it. We spend, we've got, again, on, we're out on Instagram and TikTok, yes, and a lot of those platforms where young people are getting their information, making sure that it's there, it's available to them, so that they can engage and prepare to vote with confidence today.
All right, thank you so much. So we have the social media on the screen so everybody can learn a lot more about it. I just want to say thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. Make sure today's the last day. Make sure you get out there. If you haven't done it yet, get out and vote.
We'll be right back with more Open BxRx Tuesday.